Thanks so much for sharing your journey with us, and I love how your story is such a strong example of someone doing their life's work. We'll just blast through the questions and then go through the audience questions. I'd love to learn more about how your thought process has evolved over time around how you bring Aotearoa's culture and mission to the wider community through the products that you create.
Yeah, one thing I've been learning is the spiritual aspects of the ngahere, which is interesting because in this day and age where we're so obsessed with science, being so close to nature, you hear these stories and you kind of think, why do we grow, or why do we plant at a certain time of the year, or why do we grow on certain slopes or around in certain areas? And there's always a kind of method to it. There's always some reason for it, whether it be cosmology or aspects of tikanga that I certainly need to learn more about. So I think, we're learning. Through the process, it's allowed me to get way more in touch with that side, which has been, really satisfying. Yeah.
And you started with tonics and then you kind of moved to health and wellness, and I remember we talked about you moving more towards the IP process of actually creating something. Could you talk a little bit more about that and how that evolved over time?
That's a really kind of important aspect actually, and something called Mātauranga Māori, which is like Māori knowledge, and provided we do it in a way that there is, it's good for our people, I think it's really important. And I think it's Y262, we're the first, I think there's a couple of other territories, jurisdictions that have given rights to native flora and fauna, but that happened ages ago, in the 90s, I think. But anyway, what's the question?
Let's move on.
Okay.
Okay.
I feel as though I had something.
Yeah, no, actually this is a perfect lead into the other question that I had, which is around how do you go about product discovery and development while balancing tradition with science and with how the modern consumer kind of use products today?
That's a really good question. What's interesting is the CBD market in North America. So there's cannabinoids and triterpenoids and saponins that more or less have an impact on something called the HB axis, which regulates stress. And it's really cool to see that we actually possess our own herbs that have similar characteristics. Kumaro in particular is amazing. So to answer your question, it's kind of a bit of a hybrid between looking at what we have, because we're obviously guided by the herbs here. We're not going to kind of depart too far from that. But it's just timely how there is now, because people want to consume not pills, they want to consume tinctures and things that are more bioavailable. And that's, I think, the CBD market in North America is just going crazy at the moment. So it's not like we're going to, it's just, kind of taking and seeing that in light of the market developing, and maybe how we can actually, maybe the iterations of the products we have are consistent with where the market's going. So ultimately, it's kind of health and wellness.
Yeah.
How with a story. Yeah.
Build upon that brand and educate the world on the benefits? They would have heard of our types of herbs. They would have heard of.
It's really expensive. Yeah. It's because we don't do any marketing, and people are still like, oh, what's kawako? What's kumaro? And this is, everyone's like, what's kumaro? I don't think anyone here probably knows of. I'm sure there's us, many, but. It's going to take time. It's going to take a long, long time, and hopefully we're still in business by then. Yeah.
What can everyone sort of learn from principles of tikanga Māori, especially around how to respect what nature's given us? So
many cultures that live close to nature adopt the same principles, and again, it's just in the face of all this technology. I certainly think that technology is making things more convenient, and I love technology, but we've got to be careful because the more convenient things are, the busier we can be. And so when it comes to tikanga, the lessons, I think it's not far off actually, looking at, who knows what the world's going to look like in 5 10 years, but with tikanga, again, I don't know much about the space, and I really should learn more about it, but tika is right, or it means to some translation, I suppose, or the right way of doing things. And so obviously it's open to interpretation, but there's so many beautiful rules and principles in accordance with kind of the environment. And so I think that New Zealand can serve in some respects as a bit of like a poster child or pin up in terms of how we actually go into business, and particularly agri-tech.
Yeah.
And these principles, as I say, have been are widely represented in many kind of communities that live close to nature. Even how you sleep, the way that you actually sleep best from between 9 and 12 or 10 and 1 when the sun goes down. I mean, these things are really obvious, right? So, but tikanga is so broad as well because obviously the tikanga associated with the flora and fauna is like so expansive. There's so much, again, how to cultivate, how to, what to do, the mihi or prayer or karakia that you have in terms of the harvesting. These things I think we're trying to maybe employ in the business. But the big one I think take with tikanga is obviously guardianship. So yeah, kaitiakitanga. That's being brought into the RMA and kind of legislative framework, things like this. So it's really cool. I mean, we're really lucky actually to have that kind of our country to have that background. I think it's really cool.
Awesome. Question from the audience. With the spotlight on climate change and how we're surfacing problems here in Aotearoa, what's your experience with our international image? Huge value still.
Yeah. Or maybe they just said it to us. Maybe they're lying to our faces. But we've got these partners in Shanghai, and I remember our first meeting. They just take our products into the online space, and they were so interested with what New Zealand was like. You tell these stories, and you kind of forget that they live in Shanghai, and same in Tokyo actually, but they're like in these little apartments, and they get into the train or into the bus, and they go and work these offices. And I mean, I suppose they do travel, but this guy Gavin was just really interested in what New Zealand was like, and we told him about the barrier, and he's like, "What? Like, that's crazy, like no Wi-Fi?" Because 75% of sales actually happen or e-commerce sales rather happen in China, and so they're so connected. They're actually super. I mean, they're cashless, and it's crazy over there. Surveillance is out of control, and so I think the image actually comes a large extent with what we sell into it for sure. I mean, everyone loves New Zealand, I think so.
Yeah, actually. That leads to a good point, because I remember when I first had our first phone call and you had to go up the mountains to take the phone call. So in addition to just the challenges of building a business, you have the challenges of working off the grid, especially in the cultivation, production area.
I'll just tell everyone this. So we had to, before this thing, we had to catch up, and Tip had to run through and check that my presentation was kind of on topic. We have Google Hangouts, and so I'm there like kind of driving, and the team will laugh because the team was over there all doing production. Anyway, and so I'm driving, and I'm like trying to figure out Google Hangouts because I don't know what. And then I've got to drive to the beach, which is a 30-minute drive from our production facility, to actually take the phone call. And I was late and all the rest of it. I'm apologising, but these things obviously are hurdles. But man, it's a good thing about being off the grid too in terms of the Wi-Fi stuff, because we just manufacture there, and then we just we kind of figured out we're putting in a booster aerial where we are over the summer, but where my family is from, we don't have any Wi-Fi, and I quite like that.
Awesome. How has your mission helped you with hiring and also fundraising as well? Yeah,
that's a real good question. When it comes to hiring, we pretty much just hire cousins and uncles and stuff, which is really cool.
Do they work for free, or do you pay them?
Yeah, actually we don't pay them much, eh? No, we do. I think the scholarships, they've just gone to, because there's hardly any kids now in the community, so the Cleves, so Wiremu and Tai Marino, so that was last year and this year, so yeah. And then I think, the next kind of kids that come through will do the same thing. We'll support them through the school as well, yeah.
Yeah. How has tall poppy syndrome ever been a factor in your journey? I think I read that. I think it's a pretty personal one for a lot of Kiwis as well. We get a lot of questions on that when we're fundraising around, well, what do you think about tall poppy syndrome and things like that?
I don't know. I think if you're so kind of the conviction or you believe so forthrightly in what you do, it doesn't really affect you maybe, but it definitely exists. I think you should ignore it. I mean, if someone's having a go at you, fuck them, eh?
Oh, this is a controversial one.
Oh, controversial.
Do you worry that bringing growth and modern tech to Aotearoa will ruin effect?
Yeah, that's a
in fact
real
ruin
good
its
question.
core value?
Yeah, I think as I say, we're not looking to get into like yes and no. So with the kind of concepts around microgrids, it's looking as though, and people may have seen the kind of Bill Gates documentary on Netflix, but it's looking as though to solve climate change, it's going to take thousands of kind of innovations, and every catchment area is different, and every part of the world. If, for example, in Germany tried to fix their kind of dependency on fossil fuels, they built the world's, at the time anyway, the world's largest solar farm, and it only took them down from 84% to like 81%. But if you're taking that to North Africa or to Southern Europe, it would have been completely different. So I think there's not one type of technology that's going to work. In terms of the island, to manufacture, we're using diesel generators, and so I think it's again an ethical kind of concept. Like if we can actually produce and grow an industry there that's powered on renewables, and that'd be awesome. But I probably would stop short of. And it comes down to the culture there too. I mean, everyone hates the idea of being connected over there. That's why I like it. So it's kind of just treating the island in its own right. And making sure that. This is my personal opinion, but people are so stressed out, and. There's something called forest bathing. If you ever get to the island, it's so epic because you're just so far away from everything, and you're in the bush. And I'm actually looking to build a place like so isolated on its own, so I can go there and just read. Because it's just, how do we deal with, and where's it going as well? I don't know. These are the kind of things that the barriers are bashing for. But when it comes to renewable stuff, I think that's actually just a requirement and something we need to do. Yeah.
Final question: what does the future hold for Aotea, your business?
I can see it's like 12 seconds, so...
Go the clock.
I don't know, but I'm hopeful.
Awesome answer.